When Xinyi opened her eyes quietly, her head felt as if she had been thrown into the washing machine and rolled for 10 times. She rubbed her son's vagina and tried to recall what happened just now. She was staying up late in the dormitory to Xiny's chemistry textbooks, but why did she lie on a muddy floor in the blink of an eye? Around the surroundings are low thatched huts, the air is filled with the smell of soil and rice, and there are also a few sounds of chickens coming from afar. This is a dream. She looked down and saw that her sportswear had turned into a thick linen, with a few straws hanging on her wrist. She suddenly became excited, stood up and looked around. Several villagers in torn clothes were looking at her with curious and fearful eyes. "Girl, where are you? Why are you dressed so weird?" An old lady with dark skin walked over and asked in a heavy dialect. A buzzing sound in Xinyi's brain instantly understood she traveled through time. As a science student, although she does not believe in ghosts and gods, this kind of separation really happens to herself, and she can only accept reality. She looked down and saw that she was still holding the heavy book, Basic Chemistry and Mechanical Principles, in her hand. This was the textbook she stayed up late last night, but she didn't expect to follow her. I came from another place and got lost. Xinyi reluctantly smiled and her brain flew quickly. She had to figure out what this place was first and then find a place to gain a foothold. "You can't sleep in the streets at all, right?" Seeing that she was pretty and spoke politely, the ant didn't have much doubts, but she just said, "There are no safe places in this year's war. You can go back to the village with me first. You can't let you, a little girl, get fed outside." Xinyi pointed to thank him and followed the ant into the village. This place is called Liuya village, located in a small border area that is abolished by the dynasty. The villagers rely on fields to make a living, but this year, the crops in the fields are almost dead. The only water source in the village is a small river, but the terrain is low, and irrigation relies on manual water fetching. It is so tired that it is half dead, and the efficiency is still so low. If only there was a way to lead the water to the field. The ant was so angry that several villagers along the way agreed. Xinyi heard it, and her heart suddenly moved. She lowered her head and glanced at the teaching materials in her hand, and a big thought emerged from her brain, a water car. This thing was a magical tool in ancient times. Although she is not a mechanical profession, the textbooks have basic diagrams of water car principles, which should be able to try to make one. "Sir, why don't I try to find a way?" Xinyi tried to speak. The ant was stunned for a moment and slammed her hand. "Hey, girl, what can you do as a little baby? Even the most capable iron craftsman in the village is not bad." Xinyi smiled, but didn't respond, just said, "I'll try to see the sir, I won't miss it anyway." In the next few days, Xinyi lived in a village home and began to prepare. She first drew simple drawings of the water truck, then found carpenters and iron craftsmen in the village, and drew some wood and iron utensils. She was flipping through the textbooks and explaining to them how to do it. At the beginning, everyone looked suspicious and thought this little girl was swaying. "Xinyi, what's your painting? It looks like a big wheel, but how can you get the water up?" Carpenter Oldly grabbed his brain and was confused. Xinyi pointed to the picture and explained patiently, "Uncle Li, look, this wheel is pushed by the water flow. After turning, these wooden boards can scoop up the water, and then pour into the next groove, and the water will flow naturally to the field. It is labor-saving and efficient." Oldly was half believing and half doubted, but seeing Xinyi saying it was not good to give her face, so she had to follow her and fuck her with her head. Several young and powerful young men also came to help. Although the villagers didn't believe that this thing could be successful, they all felt fresh and came to visit each other from time to time. Xinyi advises everyone to work during the day, and at night she hides in a broken hut to read through textbooks, and folds every detail clearly. She knew that this was her first step to stay stable in this world and she must succeed. Half a month later, the water truck was finally completed. It was a rough but solid large wooden wheel, installed on the river, with several wooden boards hanging around the wheels as water buckets. Xinyi stood aside, her heart beat a little fast. Whether this thing works depends on the actual effect. Open. With the order, the young man next to him pulled the wooden boards of water open, the river swallowed, and the wheels moved slowly. The first water bucket scoops up the water, and as the wheels rotate, the water sounded like a swallow, and then flowed into the water drain tank next to it, and then flowed through the tank to the remote field. It's done. It's done. Oldly widened his eyes and kept shouting in his mouth. The villagers around were also in a hurry and went to watch the hottest. Seeing the water flowing into the fields continuously, everyone was stunned and then burst into tears. Miss Xinyi, you are such a god descending to earth. The ant was so excited that her eyes were almost coming out, and she took Xinyi's hand and said thank you. This is so amazing. I won't have to carry water again. Several young men turned around on the water truck, and their faces were full of surprises. Xinyi looked at this scene and felt relieved in her heart, and she couldn't help but snoring at the corner of her mouth. At this moment, she finally felt a sense of accomplishment, using modern knowledge to change the lives of these villagers. This feeling was even more satisfying than having a full score in the exam. Sister Xinyi, why did you do this? You are so terrible. A crisp sound echoed from behind the crowd. Xinyi turned around and saw that it was a girl in her 16s and 17 years old, wearing tinted clothes, with bright eyes, full of worship. Who are you? Xinyi asked with a smile. My name is Yunshu, and I live in the east of the village. Sister, can I learn this from you? Yunshu was a little embarrassed, but his language was full of expectations. Xinyi looked at her pure eyes, her heart warmed up and said, okay, I'll teach you what you need to do in the future. Yunshu jumped up excitedly, saying, thank you sister, in her mouth, which looked like a little fan, which made Xinyi laugh. The success of the water car allowed Xinyi's reputation in Liuya village to be spread overnight. The villagers called her strange woman, and some people said that she was a fairy from heaven descending to earth. Xinyi heard these words, and although she felt annoyed, she was still very happy in her heart. She knew that this was just the first step, and next she had to find ways to bring more modern technology to this world and truly change the backwardness here. However, the good times did not last long. On the evening of the third day of the water truck, several men in robe came to the entrance of the village and headed straight for Xinyi's residence. The head was a middle-aged man with a sharp-mouthed cheek, and a swelling in his eyes. You're the Xinyi who made a weird thing. The man looked up and down at her, his temperament full of disdain. Xinyi glanced at her eyebrows, stood up, and replied calmly, I am Xinyi, what are the benefits of how many people are? My master is Yang Ming and Lao Yi. I heard that you had made some water truck and damaged the rules, which made several villages in the lower reaches of the river feel proud, saying that the water was slapped by you. The man sneered and then said, Old Yang, let me warn you, stop, don't think that you can come if you have a little cleverness. This world is not something you, a little girl, can do. Xinyi heard this and her heart sank. She knew that Yang Mingbo was probably a local businessman, and the water truck incident affected his interests, so she sent someone to find fault. However, she is not someone who will easily retreat. The water car is used to help the villagers irrigate and resolve drought. Why is it a bad rule? Besides, water is natural, so who can't be beaten? Xinyi said calmly, but there was a thorn in her words. The man's face changed. He didn't expect that the little girl would be so hard, and she snorted coldly, sharp teeth and sharp mouths. I'll tell you that you are old enough, don't force Lao Yang to come forward. By then, it's not a single sentence. After saying that, he swung his hand and turned away with a few people, and glared at Xinyi fiercely when he left. Yunshu stood aside, his face turned pale and said in a low voice, Sister, this Yang Ming is our local emperor. He has many thugs under his command. Even the county is too strong to give him 3 points of face. You have to be careful. Xinyi patted her on the shoulder and smiled, Don't worry, I'm a good match. If he wants to find fault, I'll play with him. Although he said it lightly, Xinyi knew in her heart that Yang Ming was not a good person. The water truck business is just the beginning, and next, what she has to face is probably a bigger challenge. However, she has this trump card with modern knowledge in her hand, and who is afraid of who is not sure. As the sun sets west, the water trucks are still moving slowly in the fields in the village, making a sound of squeaking. Xinyi stood by the river, looking far away at the land that was poured into vitality, with a hint of determination in her eyes. In this world, she will not easily recognize it. As night fell, a dimly yellow oil lamp was spotted in the thatched hut in Liuya village. Xinyi sat on the broken wooden table, holding a charcoal in her hand, painting something on a rough grass paper. Yunshu next to him held her cheek, staring at her without blinking, her face full of curiosity. "Sister, what are you painting here? A magical thing like a water car?" Yunshu couldn't help asking, and there was a burst of excitement in his voice. Xinyi raised her head, smiled, and pushed the grass in her hand to her. "Look, this is a simple iron plow head design. It is much better than the wooden plows used in the village, it saves a lot of energy and turns over soil faster. I plan to do a few trials first, so that everyone can use them. No hurry, we must expand the water truck matter first." Xinyi put away the draft paper, with a light flashing in her eyes. The water truck in Liuya village is effective. Several nearby villages have heard it and want to learn it. We have to take advantage of this to push the technology out to benefit more people. Yunshu heard this and his eyes lit up. "That's great. If my sister helps another village, our village's reputation will be even more impressive." Xinyi looked at her head and had a little more plan in her mind. She knew that relying solely on Liuya village, the influence of the influence was limited. If the surrounding villages can use water trucks, it will not only change the lives of more people, but also lay the foundation for what she will do next. After all, changing an era will not be possible with the power of a village alone. The next morning, Xinyi carried Yunshu and several young men in the village, carrying tools and pictures, and headed towards the Qingshi village next door. Qingshi village is not far away from Liuya village, but the territory is lower, and the water source problem is more serious than Liuya village. The villagers had heard about the water trucks and heard that Xinyi was coming to help, so they had been waiting at the entrance of the village. "Miss Xinyi, is it true that you heard that your water truck can bring river water into the fields?" Old Han, full of facial frost, walked forward, his language full of hope. "Of course it's true." Xinyi smiled and pointed her head, taking out the picture from her. "I'm here today to teach you how to make it. As long as the materials are thick, you can pack it in a few days." When Lao Han heard this, he was so excited that he rubbed his hands straight and said yes. The villagers next to him also surrounded him and asked this question in a slight manner. Xinyi patiently answered one by one, and then she took Yunshu and a few young men to start watching the scene. "Yunshu, you take a few people to the river to measure the flow rate. I have to determine the size of the wheel." Xinyi said one side, and tagged the picture with a charcoal pen. "Okay." Yunshu was slightly angry, and Lima pulled a few people to work. Although she didn't understand any scientific principles, she had strong execution and did not misunderstand every sentence of Xinyi. After several days, the water trucks in Qingshi village were successfully built. When the first stream flowed down from the wheel and flowed into the fields, the villagers' shouts were almost overwhelming. Xinyi stood aside, looking at their excitement, and a warm current surged in her heart. She knew that this change was not only technical, but also gave these people hope. "Miss Xinyi, we can't forget your kindness." Lao Han held her hand with a slight look in his eyes. "What's the point of helping you in the future, even if you open your mouth?" Xinyi held her hand and said with a smile, "Don't thank me, this water car is not my personal contribution. Everyone is very committed to working hard and their lives will get better and better in the future." In the next half-month, Xinyi and Yunshima ran to several villages without stopping to build water trucks and teach everyone how to use and repair them. Her reputation spread like a wind, and more than 10 villages in Fengyuan knew that there was a strange woman in Liuya village who could make things that people dare not think of. Many villages even actively sent people to ask her to come and help her. Xinyi came without hesitation, but also put forward the conditions. After each village has learned technology, it has to send several people to learn skills with her to help her make more tools. Sister, are you planning to build a big workshop? Yunshu couldn't help asking as she looked at Xinyi's busyness. Xinyi looked at her head, and there was an ambition in her eyes. Yes. Water car is just the first step. Next, I will make iron plows and easy pelletizers to make the farming easier. Once the technology is mature, we can still sell it to a more remote place, change food and silver, and slowly get through the days. Yunshu was stunned for a moment. Although she didn't quite understand what selling skills mean, she still tried to point out, anyway, I hear everything my sister said. Xinyi couldn't help laughing when she looked at the little fan girl like her. She knew that although Yunshu had no education, he was honest and loyal to himself. With such help, she felt a lot in her heart. Just as Xinyi was busy promoting a water truck and planning new tools, Mao Yan also quietly came to the door. That evening, she and Yunshu returned from the other village. Before they could enter the entrance of the village, they saw several people wearing official uniforms standing at the entrance of the village, holding a volume of papers in their hands, and followed by several big and thick thugs next to them. Who is Xinyi? As soon as the official in charge opened his mouth, his words were full of impatience. Xinyi's heart sank, but there was no panic on her face. She stepped forward and said, I am Xinyi, what advice do you have? The official glanced at her, sneered, and slapped the document in Yang's hand. I am ordered to announce that from today on, each of Liuya village and several surrounding villages will need to pay 30% of the tax on each of them, which will be dedicated to cultivating the official's way. If you are dissatisfied, please take the blame. As soon as this was said, the surrounding villagers were blown up. 30% tax silver, for these already tight farmers, it is simply an astronomical number. Many people shouted on the spot, officials, I can't live this day anymore, why can I still increase my taxes? Isn't this what I'm going to kill us? Stop! The official shouted coldly, and the thug next to him stood up and wanted to move. The villagers shrunk their necks in amazement, and dared not speak out. Xinyi stared at her eyebrows and looked at this scene, her heart quickly began to count. She knew that she probably couldn't get involved with Yang Ming. That day his men came to warn her that now it seems that this is real. By raising taxes by the government, the villagers were forced to use her water truck, and might even turn their anger to her. After that, the water truck triggered a swallowing battle. Official, this tax silver is added suddenly, is there any way to say it? Xinyi opened her mouth without being humble and arrogant, and her language was calm. The official snorted coldly, speaking. The order on the head is speaking. You are a little girl, just be careful of things and pay taxes obediently. Xinyi didn't say much, but just lowered her head slightly, and the brain had already started to calculate the countermeasures. The government's tax silver is a tough rule and cannot escape it, but she cannot make the villagers lose trust in her because of this, and she cannot make Yang Ming's move succeed. That night, Xinyi called several elders and young people in the village together and started a small party. Under the oil lamp, everyone's faces were not good-looking, and their anger came one after another. Miss Xinyi, this tax silver is too ruthless. We really can't afford it. Old Li slapped his thigh, filling his face with a sad face, or, stop the water car first, so as not to cause trouble again. Yes, I heard that this matter had something to do with the water truck. Lao Yang was displeased and insisted that we had snatched the water downstream. Another villager also agreed. Xinyi felt helpless when she heard these words, but she knew that retraction at this time was equivalent to recognizing. She cleared her throat, stood up, and said with a calm voice, Dear uncles and brothers, the tax silver is really difficult, but the water truck cannot be stopped. We finally have a way to save effort, and stopping is equivalent to giving up all previous efforts. I have a way to make everyone not lose money and continue to use the water truck. What method? Everyone heard that Lima was energetic and looked at her. Xinyi smiled and took out a piece of grass paper from her sleeve, with a few lines of words on it. We don't hand over the silver directly, but use the method of bartering. The food, cloth, and tools in the village will be exchanged with other villages, and then the exchange will be handed over to the government to pay taxes. In this way, we will not spend money on silver, but we can also spread the benefits of water trucks and tools to attract more people to learn. Old Li was stunned by the ears and grabbed his brain. Can this work? Will the government recognize these things if it doesn't recognize silver? If you don't know, see what to discuss. Xinyi smiled confidently. Isn't the government asking for taxes just for silver and materials? We will give the materials directly, and they have no reason not to accept them. Besides, if these things are replaced, other villages will know the benefits of water trucks and tools, which will be too. Everyone heard it, although they were half believing and half doubted, they still felt that this method was fresh and decided to try it. Xinyi immediately arranged for Yun Shu and a few young people to exchange things in the nearby village the next day with the food and cloth from the village. In the next few days, Xinyi's barter plan began to be implemented. Yun Shu took people to several villages, used the food from Liuya village to return to the chicken, eggs and vegetables from Qingshi village, and used cloth to replace the ironware and firewood from other villages. These things piled together and looked more worthwhile than the current silver. Xinyi brought several villagers to the government and delivered the exchanged materials to the government, saying it without any leakage. Officials, this is the wish of our village. Although there is no silver, these things are more practical than silver. I will make you smile. The official wanted to pick on it, but looking at the cart of supplies, his face became much more peaceful, and he hummed, "It's too bad, let's forget it this time. I won't be in the silver next time, but it's not so easy to say." Xinyi smiled and felt relieved. She knew that although this move was too close, Yang Ming would not stop there. Sure enough, after a few days, news came again, saying that Yang Ming spread rumors in the county city that Xinyi's water car was a monster, which caused the downstream village to be in a wasteland, and tried to arouse more people's dissatisfaction with her. "Sister, Yang Ming is so arrogant. He obviously wants to press us, but he is also wearing a good person." Yun relaxed his face and clenched his fists and stamped his feet. Xinyi patted her on the shoulder and said calmly, "The more he is like this, the more he shows that he is afraid. The effect of water trucks and tools is here, and the people are not stupid. Who is bad, they have a lot in their hearts. Let's ignore these words and continue to do their own things." Under Xinyi's leadership, Liuya village and several surrounding villages began to use iron plows and easy-to-removal tools on a small scale. Although these things are roughly crafted, they are more than twice as efficient than traditional tools. The villagers use them and their mouths are full of praise. Xinyi took advantage of this mission to organize several young people from the village and set up a small workshop that specializes in making tools and promoting technologies. "Sister, we can make 3 iron plows a day in this workshop. All nearby villages are changing, and the more food you eat." Yun Shu Xingxing reported, his eyes full of worship. Xinyi looked at her head, but she didn't have much joy. She knew that although everything seemed to be smooth now, Yang Ming's threat was never lifted. That guy is very good at hand and eyes, and he will probably not be able to hold back too long by relying on the move of bartering things. She had to think of a longer way to turn things around. In the evening of this day, Xinyi stood at the head of the village and watched the water trucks moving slowly in the fields. An idea suddenly emerged from her mind: if the water truck technology can be improved, small hand-pushed grinders, or hydraulically driven pelletizers, the efficiency will be higher and the impact will be greater. By then, even if Yang Ming uses another move, the people will stand by her. "Yun Shu, tomorrow you go to the county city and listen to Yang Ming's bottom line." Xinyi turned her head, and there was a bit of coldness in her language. "I want to know how many cards he has in his hand, and where his weakness is." Yun Shu was stunned for a moment and immediately pointed, "Okay, I'll go and prepare." Xinyi looked at her back and her eyes gradually calmed down. She knew that her relationship with Yang Ming would face her head long ago. But she was not afraid that she had come to this world, she had no intention of being a person who was in trouble. Yang Ming wants to suppress her. Then come and see who can laugh to the end. As the sun sets west, the water trucks in the fields still turn, making a low squeak. Far away, several villagers carried the newly made iron plows and walked towards the village with smiles. Xinyi stood there, and the wind blew over the corner of her clothes, bringing a sense of joy and more ambition. In the early morning in Liuya village, thin fogs covered the fields, and the water truck was still turning slowly, making a low squeak. Xinyi stood at the head of the village, looking far away at the land that was irrigated with vitality, and there was not much joy on her face. Last night, Yunshu returned from the county city and brought news from Yang Ming that this guy not only had great efforts in the local area, but also had a bribe with Taipei in the county, and could almost cover up the sky with one hand. To make matters worse, he had already begun to spread rumors that Xinyi's water trucks and tools were monsters, and tried to arouse the distrust of the people in her. Sister, Yang Ming is so scared. We have to make plans early. Yun Shu stood aside, her little face full of worry, and she was holding a piece of ragged notice brought back from the county town in her hand, with some dirty words written on it. Xinyi received the notice and glanced at it. Her eyebrows rose slightly, but soon stretched out again. She kneaded the notice into a group, threw it to the side, and said calmly, "Don't panic. The more he is anxious to smear me, the more he is afraid. As long as we continue to do our own thing, the eyes of the people are bright, and who is wrong, they have many in their hearts." Yun felt a little relieved, although he was still a little worried, but looking at Xinyi's confident look, he felt a little clear in his heart. She was about to say something else when a sudden rush of footsteps came from the entrance of the village. Then a young man with a panicked face ran over and shouted pantingly, "Sister Xinyi, something is wrong. Something happened in Qingshi village." "What happened? Let's talk about it slowly." Xinyi turned her head, her language calm, but there was a bit of vigilance in her eyes. The young man wiped his sweat and said anxiously, "Many people in Qingshi village suddenly became ill, had high fever, and had red rashes on their bodies. The doctor in the village saw it and said it was a plague. Now more and more people are sick, and everyone is afraid, saying that this disease will be transmitted to our village." Xinyi's heart sank. The plague is not a trivial matter in this backward era of medical treatment. She asked, "What are the symptoms of sick people? How long does it start?" "For the past few days, I started with a headache, then I coughed, had rashes on my body, and vomited blood severely. The doctor said that there is no law, so I can last for a few more days, and I can't afford it." Before the young man finished speaking, his face turned white as paper. Xinyi bit her lip and her brain moved quickly. As a current academic student, although she is not a medical profession, her knowledge of basic chemistry and biology has given her a certain understanding of plague. This symptom sounds like it is caused by a certain bacterial infection. If you can find a suitable antibiotic, it may save people. Yun Shu, go to the village to find a few strong young men, bring cloth and hot water, and let's go to Qingshi village immediately. The young man clicked his head and ran back to the village quickly. Yun Shu didn't ask much, Lima went to Zhang Luo to work with him. In less than half an hour, Xinyi brought a small team of people and simple protective materials to Qingshi village. The scene in Qingshi village is even more intense than Xinyi imagined. There was a pungent smell of medicine and rotten smell in the village. There were many patients lying outside the thatched huts, their faces were pale and their mouths were moaning low and weak. Most of the villagers hid in their houses and dared not come out. Occasionally, there were a few people who were exploring their brains, and their eyes were full of fear. "Miss Xinyi, why are you here? This place is dangerous, go back quickly." Lao Han from Qingshi village saw her and hurried forward to block her face, full of anxiety. "Uncle, I'll see if I can help you." Xinyi raised her hand and signaled that he didn't have to worry. Then she put on a coarse cloth mask and walked into a room with the most patients. The light in the room was dim, and several patients were lying on the haystack, wearing broken quilts, and breathing rapidly. Xinyi squatted down and carefully observed the patient's symptoms: high fever, cough, red rash on her body, and even some areas began to turn erectile dysfunction. She thought that these symptoms were very similar to dysemia caused by bacterial infections, and if so, antibiotics or maybe really worked. She stood up and turned to Yunshu. You bring people to burn the water and wipe the patient's body to reduce the temperature. Remember not to touch them directly and separate them with cloth. Bloom all the things in the room, so that the disease can spread. The clouds are comfortable and the Lima takes people to work. Xinyi returned to the package she brought, and found the book, Basic Chemistry and Mechanical Principles, and quickly turned to the chapter related to biochemistry. In her memory, cyanin was the earliest antibiotic. Although the production conditions seemed very harsh in modern times, in this era, as long as cyanin can be cultivated and crude cyanin can be extracted, it may be life-saving. Blue bacteria need moisture environment and organic matter as cultivation base. Xinyi said in a low voice and quickly outlined a plan in her brain. She remembers that the book mentioned that green bacteria can grow naturally on rotten bread or fruit, and may accelerate cultivation if the temperature is controlled properly. She immediately found several villagers and asked, "Is there any food or bad fruit in the village?" "The more the better." When the villagers heard this, they all thought it was strange, but they still did it. Someone brought a pile of floury noodles and apples, piled them in front of Xinyi, emitting a sour smell. "Miss Xinyi, what can this thing be fucked? It won't be even worse, right?" Lao Han couldn't help asking, full of confusion. Xinyi smiled and explained, "Uncle, there may be a cure for these bleached things. I have to try it. If it succeeds, I may be able to save people." Lao Han was half believing and half doubted, but seeing Xinyi's face was serious, it was hard to say anything else, so he had to let others help. Xinyi found a clean clay pot, broke the flour, mixed it with some clean water, placed it in a cool and damp corner, and then covered it with a cloth to avoid bacterial interference. She knew in her heart that this was just the first step, and it took time to cultivate green bacteria, and the most important thing to do now is to control the spread of the disease. In the next few days, Xinyi almost didn't meet her eyes. She arranged people to isolate patients and disinfect the environment, and guarded the clay pots day and night to observe the growth of green fungi. Yunshu and several villagers were helping each other. Although they were tired and sweating profusely, no one complained. "Sister, can you really do this? Looking at these green hairs, how could I feel so furious?" Yunshu squatted beside him, watching a layer of green bacteria grow from the clay pot, and couldn't help but shrink her neck. Xinyi smiled and patted her head, "Don't be afraid, this green hair is a life-saving thing. When it grows a little longer, I will try to extract the medicine inside." Yunshu seemed to understand the point but didn't understand what extraction was, but her trust in Xinyi made her not ask much and continued to help her. At the same time, news of the plague spread like a wind. Patients also appeared in several villages around Liuya village, and people were panicked for more than 10 minutes, and some even began to burn incense and worship God, asking God to calm their anger. Yang Ming's subordinates took the opportunity to spread rumors in the county and villages, saying that this plague was caused by Xinyi's water car and demonics, which made the heavens angry and the people resentful. "Have you heard it? Then Xinyi is a witch. She made those weird things and messed with God. Now that the plague is coming, it's all her fault." Several Yang Ming subordinates shouted loudly in the tea house, which attracted discussions from the surrounding people. When these words were passed into Xinyi's ears, she just sneered and didn't pay much attention. She knew that it was not the time to be more important than Yang Ming, so saving people was necessary. As long as the patient can be cured, the words will naturally be self-defeating. After 7 days, the green mushrooms in the clay pot finally grew much more, with a thick green layer covering the surface. Xinyi carefully scraped off some bacteria, filtered them with clean water, and then mixed a small amount of bran to make a rough extract. This process seems ridiculously simple in modern times, but she has no choice but to try it hard. She selected the most serious patient, a young man from Qingshi village. She was already so stubborn that he was stinky and had a foul smell in the place where his body was melting. Xinyi dipped the extract with a cloth, carefully smeared on his melting wound, and then asked someone to feed him a small amount of diluted liquid. Sister, can this really work? Wani. Wani is even worse. Yunshu stood aside, his palms were covered in sweat. Xinyi shook her head and said in a low voice, I don't know either, so I can only try it. If it works, it should be effective within a few days. In the next 3 days, Xinyi almost stood guarding the young man and observed his changes. On the first day, there was no silence, and the young man was still tall and burned. On the second day, his burns seemed to retreat a little, but he was still unconscious. On the morning of the third day, Xinyi suddenly heard a faint moan, and she turned her head suddenly and found that the young man opened his eyes. Although he was weak, there was a little more clarity in his eyes. Water, I want water. The young man's lips were cracked and his voice was sandy. Xinyi was delighted, and Lima asked Yunshu to bring a bowl of warm water and feed him carefully. Afterwards, she checked his wound and found that the place where the elixir was cured, and the red kidney also subsided a lot. It's done. It's done. Xinyi was shocked, and couldn't help but snoring the corners of her mouth. At this moment, the stone in her heart finally landed on the ground. Although this crude green bean is far less effective than modern medicines, at least it is clear that the direction is right. Sister, is he really good? How can this green hair cure the disease? Yunshu widened his eyes, his face full of disbelief. Xinyi smiled and explained, this is not an ordinary bacteria. There is something in it that can kill the little worms that kill people. If the little worms die, the disease will naturally be cured. Yunshu was stunned for a moment when he heard this. Although he didn't understand completely, he still pointed at the tip of the slap. Sister, you are too scared. Everyone is saved this time. Xinyi didn't waste time, so Lima used the same method to extract more crude green liquid for other patients. Although not everyone can fully recover, most patients' symptoms have been solved, especially those who are young and can walk in a few days. The villagers of Xinyi village were stunned when they watched this scene, and then burst into tears. Miss Xinyi, you are a living bodhisattva. You saved our lives. Lao Han knelt down with his head, and his face was filled with tears. Other villagers also knelt down, saying thanks in their mouths. Xinyi hurriedly helped Lao Han up and said, Uncle, don't do this. I'm just trying to do something. Let's get up quickly. Although the disease has been stagnant, it has not been cured yet. We have to continue to be on guard. The villagers only stood up, but the look of Xinyi's eyes turned from gratitude to awe. The news was like wings growing, and it spread across the surrounding villages and even to the county city. Many villages heard that the plague in Xinyi village was cured, and they sent people to ask for medicine. Several small landlords and wealthy households even sent their servants to buy medicine with silver coins. Miss Xinyi, my old man has this disease. I heard that you have magic medicine. Please help me. Good silver. A butler wearing a face stood at the entrance of the village, smiling all over his face, and carrying a bag of heavy silver in his hand. Xinyi glanced at the bag of silver and slammed her head, I don't want silver. The medicine can be given, but the amount is not large. Please use it first for serious illnesses. Go back and tell your old man that after heals, don't forget to help the villains in the village. The housekeeper was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Xinyi to say this, but he still pointed his head and took the medicine and left happily. In less than a few days, several landlords and wealthy people who had medicine were cured. They were grateful to Xinyi and sent food and cloth to express their gratitude. Some of them even came to the door, saying that she was a divine doctor in the world, and said that she would report to the court to her and ask her for me. Xinyi's reputation spread throughout the county overnight, and even reached the prefecture. The people call her Farm Fairy, and say she is a fairy sent from heaven to save the suffering and the difficulties. The villagers of Liuya village and Xinyi village even regarded her as their life-saving benefactor, and they praised her as their reputation for carrying water trucks and tools. However, the good times didn't last long. Just as Xinyi was busy making more green souvenirs and treating patients, Yang Ming couldn't sit still. Seeing that Xinyi's reputation was getting bigger and bigger, not only did she not be suppressed by the words, but she won the favor of the people and the power of Qing Yan, and the jealousy in her heart was about to become angry. Have you heard it? That Xinyi's medicine is not a good thing at all. Those who eat it will die sooner or later. She is a cheater and will harm people. Yang Ming's subordinates made a big announcement in the county's tea hall and market, and their lingerie and strange atmosphere attracted many people who didn't know the truth to start discussing. These words soon came to Xinyi's ears. Yun was so happy that his little face was red, and he clenched his fists and said, Yang Ming is so fond of faces. My sister saved so many people, and he dared to say nonsense. I really want to find someone to beat him up. Xinyi heard, but she was not angry, but just smiled. It's useless to beat him up. Her mouth is on others, just say it. What we have to do is to prove that this medicine is not poisonous in front of everyone, and let him hit his own face. How to prove it? Yun Shu blinked, his face full of curiosity. Xinyi lowered her head and then raised her head, with a light flashing in her eyes. Open the test. Let's ask a few patients whom we want to use the medicine on our faces so that everyone can see the effect. With the scheming, I will talk to you about the truth. No matter how Yang Ming edits it, he can't write anything harder than the truth. When Yun Shu heard this, Lima clapped and applauded. Good idea. Sister, I'll make arrangements. 3 days later, the open space in Liuya village was filled with people. Villagers from several nearby villages, county towns were popular, and even a few small officials and landlords came. There were a lot of people who had broken the field. In the middle of the open space, Xinyi and Yun Shu set up a table with several clay pots on it, and inside it was the newly extracted crude green liquid. There were several patients who were willing to try their medicine standing next to them, all of which were milder but had obvious symptoms. Dear towns, I want to come today to prove something in person. Xinyi stood at the table, her voice clear and her eyes swept over the crowd. Someone recently said that my medicine is poisonous and you will die after taking it. I don't blame anyone who believed these words, but what is the truth? We have to speak in practice. Today, I will use medicine to these patients in front of you. 3 days later, it will be in this place. Let's see the results. There were times when people were talking about it. Some people were pointing it out, some were half believing and half doubting, but most people were staring at Xinyi, with curiosity in their eyes. Yang Ming's subordinates were mixed in the crowd. When they heard this, they couldn't help but sneer. Let's see how you put the scene in 3 days. Xinyi ignored the sarcastic reluctance. When the crowd picked up a can of green liquid, he applied the wound to the first patient, and then diluted it a little, so that he could drink it. The whole process was clean and neat, without any concealment. Later, she gave several other patients medicines one by one, and was calm and unhurried in action. This medicine is mentioned from bacteria and it sounds strange, but it can kill the murderer's little worm. Xinyi operated it and explained loudly, the disease is the little worm's behavior on the body. This medicine is specially used to treat these worms. Why is it effective? Because I have tried it, many people in Qingshi village have been cured, so everyone can go and ask. Her words are simple and easy to understand. Although the villagers don't understand what a little slut is, they hear it with relish. Especially when she mentioned the patients in Qingshi village, many people agreed, and everyone saw those who had recovered. It's so terrible. Who knows if it's a cheater? One of Yang Ming's subordinates couldn't help but jump out, full of harsh words. All drugs are really poisonous, how can you afford it? Xinyi turned her head and looked at him and smiled, I can't afford it. I will see it in 3 days. If the medicine is really poisonous, Xinyi will punish everyone for being guilty. But if the medicine is fine, please go back and tell Lao Yang, do less complaints, and do more practical things. As soon as this was spoken, a burst of laughter broke out from the crowd. The subordinate was so bruised that his face was thick and thick. He glared at Xinyi hatefully, and he didn't dare to say anything again. 3 days passed quickly, and on the agreed day, the open space in Liuya village was once again filled with people, even more than last time. Several patients who tried the drug were taken to the center of the venue. When the villagers saw it, they were stunned. Although these people were still a little weak, their faces were bright and easy to turn, their wounds were scabbed, and the red rash subsided, and their spirits were much better. It's so good. This medicine really works. Someone in the crowd shouted, and then his palms and cries became one. Xinyi stood at the table and smiled and said, "Everyone, the fact is right in front of you. This medicine is not poisonous, it only serves people to save people. If you still don't believe it, you can choose a few more people to try it, and I will accompany you at any time." This was said simply, and the villagers were trying to get started, and several small officials and landlords also showed praise. Yang Ming's subordinates were mixed in the crowd, their faces were blue and they couldn't say anything. "Sister, you are so great. Let's see what Yang Ming said now." Yun Shu stood aside, jumping straight up with admiration in her eyes. Xinyi patted her shoulder and said in a low voice, "This is not finished yet." In the next few days, Xinyi brought Yun Shu and a few villagers to deliver the newly extracted green ginger liquid to the poor families in several villages around her. She doesn't charge a penny, she just tells everyone to cleanse when using medicine to prevent the disease from recurring. This movement made her reputation spread throughout the years. The people not only appreciated her life-saving grace, but also admired her selflessness. "Miss Xinyi, we have never seen a good person like you. If this medicine is sold, how much silver is worth? If you give it for free, how can we report it to you?" An old woman who got the medicine took Xinyi's hand and her eyes were clear. Xinyi smiled and helped her up. "Auntie, you don't need to give it. It's my greatest wish to help everyone. You can take care of yourself more in the future and don't get sick again." The old woman pointed her head and kept saying, "Thank you," in her mouth. Her grateful eyes made Xinyi feel warm. She knew that Yang Ming's remarks this time were finally suppressed by her. The trust of the people is her greatest backing. No matter how Yang Ming uses his move, he cannot hinder the hearts of the people. Sure enough, after a few days, Yang Ming heard about the public trial and was so excited that he smashed several teacups in his mansion. He thought he would be able to make Xinyi's reputation very bad this time, but he didn't expect that it would make her reputation even more popular, and even several rights began to show goodwill to her. When his men came back, the war said tremblingly, "Old man, now everyone in the county is hailing Na Xinyi, saying that she is a pharmacist. No one believes our words. Waste. A bunch of waxes." Yang Ming slapped the table, his face so dark that it could drip out of water. "This little girl has some tricks. But what is the people's mind? I really think that a few ghosts can make the world happen. Tell me and keep staring at her. I don't believe that she can keep walking." The subordinates clicked their heads and retreated. Yang Ming sat in the Grandmaster's chair, his eyes were angrily, and his mouth muttered, "Xinyi, let's take a look." Under the night in Liuya village, Xinyi sat in the thatched hut, and the oil lamp reflected on her face, looking particularly peaceful. There were several empty pots on the table, next to them was a pile of newly prepared noodles. She was writing something down, like recording precautions for cyanin extraction. Yun Shu walked in with a bowl of hot soup and said lightly, "Sister, I've been busy all day. Let's drink some soup to warm up." Xinyi raised her head, smiled, and took the soup bowl. "Thank you, Yun Shu. Thank you for your hard work in these days." "What's the hard work? I'm not happy to be able to do something with my sister." Yun Shu grinned, then got closer and asked in a low voice, "Sister, will Yang Ming get hurt again this time?" Xinyi took a sip of soup, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. "Yes, sure. But it's okay. The more anxious he is to move, the easier it is to show the brokenness. Next, we not only need to do medicine, but also continue to promote the technology of water trucks and tools to benefit more people. By then, even if he has great skills, it will not be able to suppress us." Yun Shu listened, making her head look, her eyes filled with expectation. "Then I will learn new things at any time with my sister." Xinyi couldn't help laughing when she looked at her image. She knew that this and Yang Ming's wait were never over. But she is not afraid, she has the trump card of modern knowledge in her hand, and the support of the people under her feet. She has the confidence to continue this path. The moonlight outside the window entered the house, and the water trucks in the fields were still turning, making a deep sound. Far away, several villagers carried lights and hummed small tunes in their mouths, and walked towards the village. Xinyi looked at this scene and felt a warm current in her heart, and she felt more assured. In this world, she will change it in her own way. In the early morning in Liuya village, the thin fog had not yet dissipated, and the water trucks in the fields were slowly turning, making a familiar squeak. Xinyi stood at the head of the village, looking far away at the land that was irrigated with greenery, with a hint of softness in her eyes. In the past few months, she has used Qingsu to treat countless people, her name has spread throughout the prefectures, and even shocked the high level of the dynasty. Now, several valuables have come to see her in the county city, saying that they are ordered by the court. Sister, I heard that this time I came, the high-ranking officials in the capital, and the prefect of the state prefecture must accompany you to Smile. They are looking for you, there is nothing wrong with it. Yun Shu stood aside, excited and had a red face. He was holding a piece of clean wooden board in his hand, preparing to record Xinyi's new ideas. Xinyi smiled and patted her on the shoulder. Don't guess, you'll know what's going on when you come. Let's do it first. We'll have to deliver this batch of new medicine to several villages in the south, and I heard that someone was sick again. The clouds were relaxed, and Lima ran to Zhang Luo. Xinyi turned back to the workshop. This was the place she built a few months ago. Although it was simple, it could already make simple tools such as iron plows, pellet machines, and even small hand-pushing mills. She taught more than 10 young people basic mechanical principles and green essence extraction methods. These people became her first apprentices and also became the bones of technical promotion. Just as she was checking a bunch of newly made iron plows, a sound of horse hooves came from the entrance of the village. Then several men in robes walked in. The head was an official in his 50 years old, full of dignity, carrying a few points of grace. Following him, there was also a minor official from Taipei and the prefecture of the county, each with his head down and looked particularly respectful. Miss Xinyi, this official is Lord Li, the minister of the ministry. He is ordered by the Holy Emperor to come to Liuya village to find out the truth. The official opened his mouth, his voice loudly, and his eyes were filled with review. I heard that you used magic to save the people and created many powerful tools. The court is very concerned about it. I specially ordered me to come and see you, a strange woman. Xinyi was moved in her heart, but there was no panic on her face. She gave a respectful greeting and said calmly, Chao Min Xinyi, I have seen Lord Li. The master came from afar, but he really dared not act. Chao Min just did some small things to save people. How could he deserve the word miracle? Lord Li heard this, laughed, and said with a smile, I'm so stupid. Your water car, iron plow, and the magic medicine for curing plague have been sent to the capital. After hearing the sacred dying, the dragon's heart was very angry, saying that you are the lucky star of Dakian. I saw it today, and it was indeed a false reputation. Let's go. The official went to the county city for details. There are some things in the court and I want to negotiate with you. Xinyi clicked a little, but didn't recommend it much, and briefly explained Yun Shu's sentences, and then followed Lord Li and his party to the county city. On the way, she thought that the court intervened this time, probably because she was attracted by her skills. Sure enough, when he arrived at the county town hall, Lord Li went straight to the point and praised his words. Miss Xinyi, after the Christmas heard about you, he ordered the account department to pay a fee to help you build a large workshop and make special tools and medicines. If you have the intention, you can promote these technologies to the whole country. The court will grant you a certificate, and even give you an official and half a job in an extraordinary way. As soon as this word came out, the county Taipei and the minor officials of the prefecture on the side showed a look of admiration. Xinyi didn't rush to answer, so she lowered her head and thought for a moment, and raised her head and said, "Sir, the people of Chao are grateful for the grace of the Holy Ones, and they also want to promote technology to benefit the people. But the people of Chao have a condition: after the workshop is built, half of the silver income must be used to save wealthy families, and the other half will be used to expand and teach people's hands. Chao people do not seek official positions, but only want to allow more people to live a good life." Lord Li was stunned for a moment and immediately laughed. "Okay. I have ambition and a strong heart. I will report to the sacred poem, and I will definitely not be responsible for your wishes." A few months later, with the help of the court, a large workshop rose to the ground near Liuya village and was named Humanfang. There are not only cars here that make water trucks, iron plows, and pellet machines, but also pharmacies that specialize in extracting cyanin. Xinyi brought the first batch of apprentices and formulated a standard operating procedure to ensure that each tool and every drug are of excessive quality. The court also sent several small officials to assist in the management. The reputation of the workshop quickly spread throughout the dynasty. People from all over the country came here to seek tools or medicine. "Sister, now Humanfang can make more than 10 iron plows a day, and the medicine has been sent to several state prefectures. The Hongqiu district in the south heard that we used our water trucks to save a lot of fields." Yun Shu stood at the door of the workshop, holding a notebook in his hand, and was excited to report it. Xinyi pointed and said with a smile, "It's a good job. However, it's not enough to do these. We have to recruit some more people and teach them how to use their own small workshops in the state. Technology cannot be left in our hands, it has to be passed on." Yun Shu was so angry that he got closer, and said in a low voice, "Sister, I heard that Yang Ming has been having trouble recently. His business and cloth are so weak that he is unable to lift his head by our tools and medicines. Many businesses are yellow. His men also said that he is angry at home all day long, and even the county is too busy to pay attention to him." Xinyi heard it and raised her eyebrows slightly, but she didn't say much, but said lightly, "He chose his own path, no wonder others. We should still focus on doing our own things and not be distracted." Although she said this, Xinyi knew in her heart that Yang Ming had been so stressed by her in the past few months. Her tools greatly increased farm efficiency, doubled the food production, and Yang Ming's food business plummeted. The emergence of Qingsu also caused the pharmaceutical market he controlled to lose its advantages, and the cloth and transportation business carried him were also hit. With the support of the imperial court for Humanfang, no matter how powerful Yang Ming's local power is, he began to move. As expected, it didn't take long before Yang Ming finally couldn't sit still. In the evening of this day, Xinyi was checking the extraction progress of a new batch of green glutinous rice in the workshop. Suddenly, an acquaintance came to the door, the middle-aged man with sharp mouth and monkey cheeks sent by Yang Ming to warn her. At this time, he was filled with smiles, as if he had changed his mind, and he was holding a letter in his hand. "Miss Xinyi, my old man deliberately sent a letter to me, saying that there are important matters to discuss, and I would like to ask you to take a look." The man lowered his head, his language was full of caution. Xinyi received the letter and opened it and saw that she was very polite. Yang Ming called her niece of Venus. She said that she was old and had no intention of fighting again. She hoped to turn enemies into friends with her, and even wanted to sell her several of her subordinates to her at a low price, just to maintain the last face of the family. At the end of the letter, he also specifically mentioned that, "I offended many times in the past, so I hope I can forgive me." "Sister, why did this old fox suddenly take the soft spot? Why would he have any other tricks, right?" Yun Shu looked over and looked suspicious. Xinyi smiled and said with a slight head, "It shouldn't be a trick. He really has no tricks now. His industry has almost collapsed. The court is standing by us again. He has to lower his head even if he doesn't lower his head. However, he is so cunning, we have to be on guard." That night, Xinyi replied with a letter and met Yang Ming in a tea house in the county town 3 days later. She did not intend to add insult to injury, but she would not give up this opportunity easily. Although Yang Ming's industry has declined, his foundation is still there. If he can buy it, it will expand the influence of Humanfang. 3 days later, Yang Ming was waiting there early in the tea building in the county city. The business tycoon who was once in a state of enthusiasm now looks over 10 years old, with white horns and exhausted eyes. When he saw Xinyi coming in, he reluctantly smiled and stood up and bowed. "Miss Xinyi, I have long admired my reputation. I saw it today and it is indeed extraordinary." Xinyi replied with a headshot, sat down and went straight to the point. "Old Yang, I have read the matter in the letter. Since you intend to reconcile, I don't need to be aggressive. I can buy your industry at the market price, but there is a condition: after the purchase, these industries will be the same as Humanfang. Half of the profits will be used to save the people and the other half will be used to promote technology. If you agree, we will be able to expose this." Yang Ming heard it and his face changed slightly, and he didn't seem to expect Xinyi to mention this condition. But he lowered his head and thought for a moment, but still gritted his teeth and said, "Okay. Miss Xinyi is broad-minded, I admire her. Over the years, I have been short-sighted and mistook you. I have met this condition." Xinyi pointed at the head, and didn't say much. When the contract was made, both parties signed and stamped. Although Yang Ming was unwilling to accept it, he also knew that this was his only way out. Xinyi took advantage of this opportunity to include Yang Ming's food, cloth and transportation network under Humanfang, further expanding the business version. She didn't wait for Yang Ming, and left some silver for him to spend his old age. "Sister, why don't you treat him hard? This old man has never been bad before." Yunshu heard about this and couldn't help but mutter. Xinyi smiled and slammed her head. "What's the use of curing him? People are old and have no industry anymore. The biggest punishment is to let him watch us grow bigger and bigger. He is now lowering his head to leave the last slim face for himself. We don't lack this little revenge, we have to look forward." Yunshu curled her lips. Although she was not very convinced, she still lit up. She knew that Xinyi was a person who was soft-hearted, but she never wasted. This matter was handled without any leakage, and even Yang Ming could not find any fault with her. After purchasing Yang Ming's business, Xinyi's business network quickly expanded to the entire state prefecture, and even reached nearly several states. She copied the Humanfang model in the past, and each state prefecture built small-scale workshops to specialize in producing tools and medicines, and at the same time cultivated local technical talents. The court saw her with great results. Not only did she give her money back, but she also named her the ambassador of Huimin. Although she had no right, she was famous and popular among the government and the public. She even wrote a plaque, "The show was born," on the sacred temple and hung on the main door of Humanfang. "Sister, the whole Dakian knows you now. All the valuables in Beijing have sent people to learn technology and say they want to report your kindness." Yunshu stood at the door of Humanfang, looking at the golden plaque with a flash of golden light, his eyes full of worship. Xinyi smiled, not saying much, just lowered her head and flipped through the book in her hand. In the past few years, she not only changed the lives of the people, but also cultivated hundreds of technical inheritors, who were scattered throughout Dakian and taught the production methods of water trucks, iron plows, and green pineapple. Her goal is simple: to make technology a thing that everyone can use, not a secret hidden in the hands of a few people. "Yunshu, tomorrow you will take a few people to the southern prefecture to see how the workshops are moving. Then I brought some new medicine and heard that the weather has been damp recently and is prone to illness." "Okay. Sister, don't worry, I will do it properly." Yunshu patted her chest, full of confidence in her face. After following Xinyi these years, she had long since transformed from the shy little girl to an assistant who could stand alone, and even her words were trained. Xinyi looked at her back and slighted on the corner of her mouth. Yunshu's growth made her heart warm. She knew that she came to this world not only to change the times, but also to enable the people around her to live a better life. After a few more years, Humanfang's influence has spread to every corner of Dakian. Water trucks and iron plows doubled the farm's harvest, Qingsu treated countless patients, and even the troops in the border used her skills, and the situation of soldiers being reduced due to illness was greatly reduced. Although the industrial change initiated by Xinyi was still in a mess in this era, it has profoundly changed the lives of the people. On this day, Xinyi received a letter from the capital city, written by Lord Li, the minister of the Ministry of Accounts, saying that the sacred man heard her achievements and specially summoned her to the capital to prepare for personal visits and discuss how to promote her technology to a more remote place. At the end of the letter, it also mentioned that the court intended to compile and communicate her stories to her, and to pass them on to later generations. Sister, come to Beijing to see the sacred temple. This is a great honor. When will we leave? Yun Shu jumped up excitedly when he heard the news, wishing he could pack his luggage. Xinyi smiled and said with a slight head, no hurry. We have to go to the things in Beijing early, but what we need to be more tight now is to do the things we do. We haven't tried this batch of newly designed pelletizers. I have to check the effects first and then consider the differences. Yun Shu curled her lips. Although she was a little disappointed, she still pointed. She knew that Xinyi was never moved by fame and fortune, and her heart was always on the people. A few months later, Xinyi finally embarked on the way to Beijing with Yun Shu and a few apprentices. Wherever they passed along the way, countless people stood on the road and greeted her. Some even knelt on the ground and shouted, "Fairy of Medicine," and "Ambassador of the People." Xinyi looked at this scene and felt a little confused in her heart. She never thought that an ordinary modern female college student could leave such a mark in this era. When she arrived in the capital, the Holy Lord met her. In the golden and blue hall, Xinyi talked about her skills and concepts without being humble and arrogant. She heard the news from the Christmas festival and issued an order on the spot to promote the Humanfang model to the whole country, and gave a lot of money to support her in continuing to develop new technologies. After the meeting, the monk also handed over a jade pendant to her as a reward for her. Sister, this jade pendant is a token of the sacred place. Holding it, you can go anywhere in the world. Yun Shu held the jade pendant, his eyes as bright as stars. Xinyi smiled and took the jade pendant, but didn't care much, but just put her sleeves in her hand. It's useless for those who don't want to make a token. What's really worth is the technology in our hands and the trust of the people. After returning to Liuya village, Xinyi did not stop walking. She continued to develop new tools with her apprentices, and even began to try hydraulically driven woven fabric machines. Although the technology is not mature, she has already seen a new shape. She also built a simple school to teach children in the village about their identities and basic scientific knowledge. She hopes that when they grow up, they can take over her baton and continue to change this world. Sister Xinyi, I will make a lot of good things like you in the future and help everyone live a good life. A little boy in his 70s or 8 years old stood at the entrance of the hall, holding a simple water truck model made of wooden head in his hand, his eyes full of longing. Xinyi squatted down, touched his head, and smiled and said, "Okay, then you have to study hard. When you grow up, you will hand over all these things to you." The little boy tried to hang out, and several children next to him also surrounded him, talking about his dreams. Xinyi looked at them, her eyes with a hint of gentleness. She knew that her efforts had already put a seed of hope in the hearts of these children. As the sun sets west, the water trucks are still moving slowly in the fields of Liuya village, making a low, squeak sound. Xinyi stood at the head of the village, looking far away at the land she had changed with a satisfying smile on her face. Yun Shu stood beside her, holding a newly painted design in her hand, and said excitedly, "Sister, this is a picture of a freshly grinded plate. What do you think?" Xinyi took the picture, carefully looked at it for a moment, and said, "It's not bad, there's progress. We'll try to make one tomorrow to see the effect." Yun Shu smiled happily, and then asked in a low voice, "Sister, we have everything now. What do you want to fuck in the future?" Xinyi heard it and was silent for a while. Then she raised her head to look towards the far sky and said lightly, "I want to see this world, and it will be better and better." Yun Shu heard it, his eyes slightly red, but he didn't say anything, but just turned his head. Xiang's remaining disasters were drawn on the two people, bringing out a long shadow. In the fields, several villagers carried iron plows and hummed small tunes in their mouths, and walked towards the village. Far away, the smoke from Human Fang was experiencing white smoke, and the children's reading voices were transmitted from the school hall. Xinyi knew that she had traveled to this world and had fulfilled her original dream, using modern knowledge to change the fate of this land. She grew from a confused time traveler to a pioneer of the era, and became a legend that countless people look up to. And all this is just the beginning. As night fell, a chicken oil lamp lit up in the thatched hut of Lilia village, and the warm light reflected the satisfied smiles of the villagers. Xinyi stood in front of the window, looking at this scene, and an incomparable sense of peace surged in her heart. She knew that no matter what the future holds, she had left an unbearable mark in this world.